Newcastle United targeting shock deal for Antony in the January transfer window. Joshua Zirkzee shines on his full debut for the Netherlands national team. And Adrian Rabiot has rejected offers from Saudi and Turkey in favour of joining a Premier League side this summer. These are some of the stories we will be discussing on this morning's live show. But before we get into that, please do me one small favour. Smash a like on today's video. Let's try and see 500 likes on this episode. And if this is your first time watching, please also subscribe to the channel. I'm live every single day at 8:30 and 6 p.m. UK time. It's completely free content. Make sure you get involved. Everyone is welcome. Right. Let's start the show off by talking a little bit about Joshua Zirkzee then, shall we? Because he had an absolutely unbelievable performance last night for the Netherlands against Bosnia. He got a goal, he got an assist, he nearly got a second goal. And it was actually his first full debut for the Netherlands. Obviously, he's come off the bench during the Euros for like literally a couple of minutes. This was the first time that he'd started a game. I think he got man of the match even as well. Like, he had an absolutely unbelievable performance. Really, really exciting. And I think, you know, I've put this up on my Twitter a couple of hours ago. Some people in this fan base were turning against Joshua Zirkzee after one game against Liverpool. And it's just frustrating. Like, I can't tell people what to think. Like, it's up to you. If that's how you want to be as a fan, then it's going to be a long season for you. That's all I'm going to say. I'll leave it at that. Like, if you're going to turn against a player after one game, like, come on. You've got to give him a chance. You've got to give him time. And then I also saw people on Twitter. I mean, to be fair, it's mainly on Twitter. Like, that's where most of these problems come from. There were people turning against Erik ten Hag, saying that it's Erik ten Hag's fault that Joshua Zirkzee didn't score against Liverpool because he scored against Bosnia for the Netherlands. I mean, I've come to the conclusion that most of these people on Twitter, these faceless accounts, are probably just like children, effectively. You know, like young people who have realised that if you put out controversial, toxic things about Manchester United, it gets clicks, it gets views. I said this a couple of weeks ago about YouTube, didn't I? I said, you know, if you want to run a really, a massive Manchester United YouTube channel and get loads of views, like the best way to do it is to just say controversial things or say toxic things, because that gets engagement, it gets clicks, it gets shares and all the rest of it. And I think it's the same on Twitter, isn't it? So last night there was this whole stream of accounts trying to blame Erik ten Hag because Joshua Zirkzee didn't score against Liverpool, but he scored against Bosnia for the Netherlands. And it's just like, can't we just get behind the team? Can't we just get behind the players? I don't know. I think once you see it for what it is, you realise what's going on, and that, you know, 99% of these accounts are just doing it because they realise that that's how they get engagement, that's how they get clicks. And obviously now that Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, is monetized and that you get money for the amount of views or people who see your tweet, people are putting out these controversial things and then other people are retweeting it. And do you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, it's crazy really. But we have to kind of just see through it and get behind the players, get behind the manager. We can only look at the next game. Obviously, we play Southampton on Saturday, 6 days away. Got to go into that game. Let's get some goals. Let's go and beat Southampton comfortably. I wonder, right? You know, even if Man United won the league and stuff, do you think these same accounts would still be complaining, saying, "Oh, I didn't like the football," or "I didn't like this"? I don't know. I think just, you know, people thrive off negativity because a lot of the time with all this negative stuff, rival fans will watch. You know, so if say Man United lose a game. Say Man United lose a game and I come on here and I start kicking off, I start throwing my chair around, I start like smashing things up, obviously probably fake. I would probably get more views than if I came on here and tried to give a balanced view of the game, wouldn't I? Because, you know, rival fans will come on, people will come on here to laugh at you. And that's what I've kind of realised in the last couple of months. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm going to be completely straight up. Like, I don't really like that side of it at all, to be honest. I don't think it's very authentic. And I think that it's quite sad that that's what, that's the formula that you have to do in order to get the big viewers on YouTube or the big retweets or, you know, the followers on Twitter. You've got to say controversial things. You've got to be toxic. You've got to be negative. And it is quite off-putting, to be honest. But once I kind of realised that and I saw it for what it was, it's that hard decision of whether you, whether you lose your integrity and you follow the formula that you can see works, or you stick with what you genuinely believe in. Yeah, and I think this was another indication of that last night when I saw people on Twitter Clearly just trying to get retweets, trying to get likes. And it works, to be fair. So this is what I put up on Twitter. Joshua Zirkzee scores a goal against Bosnia, and now Man United fans are blaming Ten Hag because he didn't score against Liverpool. I said, this fan base is doomed. It has got to the point where we accept that most of these faceless accounts on Twitter are kids trying to make money off Twitter by being toxic for clicks. And that's effectively what it is now, isn't it? And I think, yeah, it is pretty shocking. We've got a super chat coming in from Humphreys. I hope you're doing well, mate. Humphrey says, why do our players look fantastic when they're away on international duty? Do they look fantastic? I'm not sure if that's a fair point. Obviously, thank you for the super chat and thank you for the conversation. Do they look fantastic, though? I mean, the Netherlands, Matthijs de Ligt made an awful mistake yesterday against Bosnia. Terrible. Awful. He hasn't made a mistake once yet for Manchester United. But last night, go and watch the clip of de Ligt's mistake. It was terrible. Absolutely awful defending, and they scored a goal. One of the worst bits of defending I've seen in a long, long time. So to say that every single player does well for international teams, and then when they come back to Manchester, they don't. I don't think that's entirely fair, personally. But obviously, you're entitled to your opinion. And the thing you have to look at it is like this, right? Say last night, the Netherlands played Bosnia. Let's be honest, right? Bosnia aren't a particularly great football team, are they? Really? And they still conceded 2 goals against Bosnia. So yeah, I don't know. I think the thing you have to remember as well is the Premier League. Playing against Liverpool versus playing against Bosnia, it's not comparable. Liverpool are one of the best teams in the world with one of the best squads in the world. Bosnia aren't. Bosnia's best player is Dzeko. How old is Dzeko these days? He must be in his 30s by now, surely. Yeah, I mean, Dzeko's 38 years of age and he's the best player for Bosnia. That kind of sums up the argument. When people are like, oh, why are our players doing so well against Bosnia, but when they play Liverpool in the Premier League, they're not? I mean, you've kind of answered your question in itself there. You're going up against a Bosnia side who their best player is a 38-year-old versus you're going up against a Liverpool who've got Alisson, Van Dijk, Salah, Gakpo, Darwin Núñez, McAllister, etc., etc., etc. They've got 10 or 11 players who are very, very good, whereas Bosnia's best player is a 38-year-old. That's why these players are doing so well. International football is not on the level of a Premier League game. It's just simply not. Even if you go up against a Bournemouth or someone like that, that's going to be more difficult than playing a Bosnia. The same with Portugal. People saying, oh, Portugal did really, really well and all the rest of it. It's just not the same. It's not comparable. But I get your point, and I understand it's frustrating when, the players play badly for Manchester United and then they go and get goals and assists and all the rest of it for... They go and get goals and assists for the international team. Ant says, most people's integrity doesn't extend past their bank balance. We all know this. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? That's the kind of shocking thing, isn't it? I mean, it's not shocking, but once you realise that, it does. Let's see what else people are saying in the chat this morning. Ant says, I don't know how many times I have to say it. International football is rubbish. Any of the top 8 teams in the Prem would kill most of the international teams. Exactly. And that's why, as I said, fair play to Joshua Zirkzee. He did great against Bosnia, but you are playing against Bosnia, Humphreys has come back in with another chat. He says, my bad, fantastic isn't the best way to say it. I just wanted to see them in Man United kits play as well as they did on international duty. Much love. Thank you for your super chat, mate. I really appreciate it. I get your point, and I totally understand. And I think, it is frustrating. I 100% agree. When you go and see Portugal do well, you go and see the Netherlands do well, and all the rest of it. But I just think that the difference in quality in international football versus Premier League football is like light and day. I mean, England played Ireland last night and they won 2-0. Do you know what I mean? Ireland aren't a particularly good side, are they? Let's be honest. They've got 1 or 2 players. Their best players are Seamus Coleman, who's in his mid-30s and plays for Everton, who are bottom of the Premier League. I get your point. I just think that most of these international fixtures, these kind of pointless games, I call them, they're just not really very competitive. And for me, all they really serve as, you know, a way of improving your match fitness. Somebody's asking what Bosnia's ranking is. So Bosnia are ranked 75th in world football. They've got Oman and Northern Ireland around them. And that just kind of sums up the argument for me, you know? People are like, Joshua Zirkzee's amazing. Why can't Erik ten Hag get that out of him? Joshua Zirkzee just played against a team who are ranked lower in the world ranking than Montenegro and are ranked one place higher than Oman. Tell me one player you know who plays for Montenegro or Oman. You won't be able to. Like, that's the point here. And I think these international fixtures, they take away from the actual, you know, the kind of fact of the matter. Obviously, it's great for Joshua Zirkzee to get his debut. Hopefully, he continues to start for the Netherlands. Fair play to him. He had a good game, but he was playing against a very poor Bosnia side. You know, it's not comparable going up against Bosnia's defence as it is going up against Van Dijk, Alisson, Salah, etc. Like it's like light and day, isn't it? But anyway, let's move on from that. But thank you for your super chats, mate. Anne says, I'll be honest, I look at our players and I still feel like a lot of them don't really know what they're supposed to do. I mean, they're clearly being told what to do. Maybe they just don't have the football intelligence to execute what Erik ten Hag's telling them. You can't honestly believe that Erik ten Hag doesn't tell them what to do. How did Erik ten Hag get his Ajax team playing like how they did? How did Erik ten Hag beat Real Madrid at the Bernabeu in the Champions League to get to a Champions League semi-final? You don't just do that by fluke. You do that by management, by tactics. So I think if anything, the question is maybe that some of our players don't have the footballing intelligence to be able to execute what Erik ten Hag wants to do. And that's why Ole Gunnar Solskjaer did so well, because his tactics were just park the bus. Any player can park the bus. You just stay in your own half. The most difficult bit is when you try and get teams to press. It's the all pressing at the same time so you don't leave gaps and leave mistakes. It's that where we're lacking. And in all fairness, you know, as we've said before, if you do look at that Liverpool game, which was obviously our last fixture, 2 of those goals were because of a mistake by Casemiro, you know? And in that first 20 or so minutes, I don't think we even looked like the worst side. So, yeah, obviously Erik ten Hag takes blame. The manager's always going to take blame. That's obviously to be expected. But when you look at the players, you have to ask, you know, do they have the intelligence to carry out what Erik ten Hag's telling them? And also, are they willing to carry out what Erik ten Hag's telling them? That's the other question as well. You know, do they go into the dressing room? He gives them the match preview. You know, he tells them what he wants. They might just go out and do something else. Like, it's impossible to say, and we'll never know. Let's have a look what else people are saying in the chat. Aladdin says, Netherlands play Germany on Tuesday, but I bet you Zirkzee won't start. Yeah, maybe. We'll wait and see. But let's move on to the Antony story. Before we get into that, though, can everyone do me a little favour and smash a like on the video? Let's try and see 500 likes by the end of today's show. And if this is your first time watching, please do subscribe to the channel as well. I've just dropped a link into the chat to do that, so make sure you go and subscribe and like the video if you haven't already. Right, let's talk a little bit about Antony to Newcastle then. So this is coming out from multiple different journalists in the UK this morning, and the headline is this, that apparently Newcastle are looking at making a January move for Antony if their pursuit of Antony Elanga falls through. It says that United are open to selling Antony for £40 million. Eddie Howe highly appreciates his skills and believes he would be a valuable addition. I'm not going to bash Antony. I don't think he's good enough for Manchester United, but I think he could go to a Newcastle and I think he'd probably do quite well. I just think that the pressure on players at Manchester United is too much, which is obviously to be expected because we're the most successful English football side, British football side, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, I think the best thing for everybody is that Antony leaves the club and goes and tries to, reinvent himself somewhere else. Would that be at Newcastle? Maybe. I honestly think he'd probably do quite well there because the level of pressure that they'd be under would be way less. He'd still be, playing in European football. Actually, did Newcastle qualify for Europe? No, they didn't, did we? We knocked them out of it. So he wouldn't have any European football, but still. Do I think this deal will happen? I don't know. There's a lot of if, buts and maybes with this one, isn't there? The story does say that they're trying to get Antony Elanga. If that deal falls through, they're going to go for Antony. I mean, there's definitely an opportunity on the market there because Antony for 40 million is still a lot of money, but it's about half of what we paid to Ajax. And if he goes there and does decent, 40 million would be a good price for them. So, yeah, let me just blow my nose quickly. Hopefully this deal happens. I just think, Antony doesn't have a future at Manchester United for me. I hope he comes good this season, I hope he gets goals. I hope he, can have some impact on the season. But yeah, I just think his time at Manchester United is pretty much up. He's on massive wages, £200,000 a week. £40 million, I would take that in a heartbeat. I think that would be an absolute bargain for Manchester United. But yeah, obviously this is obviously can't happen now because the window's closed. It'll be more of a January one. 40 million is apparently the asking price. I would say the likelihood of this happening is probably relatively small, to be honest. But you never know in football, do you? Like, Man United do want to get rid of Antony. That's a known fact. Antony supposedly thinks he can come. Antony seems to have the confidence that he can make it work at Manchester United. I don't see it personally, but yeah, we'll wait and see what happens with that one. And then the final story I've got for you this morning is on Adrian Rabiot. This is coming out from multiple different people, but let me read the first one from Fabrizio Romano. Fabrizio is reporting this morning that Adrian Rabiot has no plans to accept proposals from Turkey or the Saudi Pro League. He says that his priority and desire is to remain in the top 5 European leagues. And there's more stories this morning saying that apparently Rabiot's agent, who is his mother, is trying to get him a move to Manchester United. Now, I want you to let me know in the comment section, would you like to see Adrian Rabiot at Manchester United? I've said this before, right? If we could get him for a good price, I probably would take him. I think we do need to strengthen our midfield. I think, Kobbie Mainoo, unbelievable player, unbelievable talent, but I think he's currently being overworked. I think if we could bring in some more options in that midfield, I would definitely do it. And I would then be looking to move on Casemiro and Eriksen in the January window, to be honest. I would hope that we would still see some players leaving, because the thing you have to remember is there are about 5 players whose contracts expire in June, which is literally, 9 months away. You've got Eriksen, you've got Lindelof, you've got Harry Maguire, you've got Johnny Evans, and you've got Tom Heaton. Those 5 players are all going to be leaving Man United in June. So ideally, you'd try and get some money for them in the January window if you could. So yeah, I mean, if we could get Rabiot, it's a free signing as long as his wages weren't too big. Apparently, he wants $200,000 a week, which to me sounds absolutely crazy. But if you're Adrian Rabiot, right, and you're looking at the Manchester United wage bracket, you can see that Maguire and Antony are on 200 grand a week. I'd be asking for 200 grand a week. Like, yeah, I would. Somebody says Rabiot is a mercenary. I don't want someone at the end of their career looking for a final payday. I mean, you have a fair point, but he is only 29. He is only 29. I wouldn't say he's at the end of his career. Like, we paid £70 million for Casemiro at the age of 30. 1 year older than Rabiot. And I think most people in the fan base were excited about that at the time. So, yeah, I just think when you look at the situation, if Kobbie Mainoo gets injured now or Bruno gets injured now, Mount's already injured, like, who plays then? It's going to be Eriksen and I don't even know. That's the thing that I'm more worried about. It's the squad depth. Like, if you look at Manchester United's midfielders, right? We'll do it together really, really quickly. Mason Mount, I think, is injury prone. I don't think. I know he's injured all the time. So Mason Mount's injured. The only midfielders we've got are Bruno, Eriksen, Casemiro, Ugarte, and Mainoo. Those are your kind of, your first choice midfielders. Would we agree on that? And you have to play 3 every single game. So at the moment, the first choice midfielders will be Ugarte, Bruno, and Mainoo. And then your backups would be Eriksen and Casemiro, right? Obviously, you've got Toby Collier as well, but he is like a young player. He's not probably going to be starting games. So imagine, say, Bruno Fernandes gets injured, right? That would probably then mean that Eriksen would be playing there. Can Eriksen play every single game? I don't think so. I think he looks tired after about 30, 40 minutes, let alone every single game. I guess arguably Zirkzee can play in the number 10 role. So you could do that. But yeah, I just think that when you look at our midfield and you look at the age of some of these players, you've got Casemiro and Eriksen, who are both 32, and then you've got Mason Mount, who's injury prone. Like, if Mainoo gets injured or if Bruno gets injured, like, what do we do then? you're literally going to be looking at like Ericsson and I don't even know. Ericsson and Toby Collier, I guess. And no disrespect towards Toby Collier. I think he looks like a good talent. But if we're already suffering at the moment with not that many injuries, what happens if a couple more midfield players get injured? It could get a lot worse. So, I would bring in Rabiot for that point alone. I think we need to strengthen. I think we need to strengthen the midfield. I just think, if we could get him for a fair wage, that would be good. But it's just whether we can or not. That's the problem. And it seems like Adrian Rabiot is refusing to accept that his best options are the Saudi and the Turkish league. Obviously, he is a free agent. We can still sign him now, even outside of the transfer window. So that's why we're talking about it, for people wondering. We can still get him now if we want to get him. But whether we will or not, we'll have to wait and see. Let's see what people are saying in the chat quickly. Al says, what do you think is a fair wage for Rabiot? It all depends on the length of the contract. It depends on signing on bonuses. It depends on how much his mother wants. It's impossible to say. Like, if Rabiot didn't want a signing on fee, then yeah, maybe 200k a week's fair. But apparently he wants, massive signing on fee. His mother wants a massive signing on fee. That's why I'm a little bit put off by it. Because when you look at it then as a complete package, you're not only paying the player 200,000 a week, you'd also be paying their signing on fee and their mother's demands as well. So, so we'll wait and see what happens with that one. Johnny says, remember, we already have 10 injuries. Yeah, I know, mate. I don't know who's at fault. I think it's just the amount of games. Obviously you had the Euros, and then literally like 3 weeks later, the Premier League starts. Like, the players are overplayed. We have too many fixtures. Obviously now in the Europa League, there's an extra 2 games. There's nothing we can do about that, though, is there? We just have to try and get on with it. We need a bigger squad. When you see Manchester City complaining about the amount of games when their bench is better than most teams in the Premier League, that's when you know you've got a problem, right? Abel says the transfer window is closed. It doesn't matter if the transfer window is closed, mate. You can sign free agents at any point. We could sign Adrian Rabiot in a month if we wanted to. It doesn't work the same. The transfer window is only for players that have a club. So we could sign Rabiot in a month, 2 months, 3 months. Like, it makes no difference. So yeah, that's why we're talking about Rabiot, because we can still sign him now. Wesley says, what do we do when Bruno Fernandes gets injured? Well, you'd hope that Mason Mount will be available, but he seems to be injury prone as well. That's my point. Like, Bruno's the starting central attacking midfielder. Mason Mount's the backup, but he's injury prone. So, like, what do we do then? Johnny says, can you register them? Yeah, of course. Yeah. So the rules are this. As long as the player hasn't registered with a new club after June, then you can sign them. Does that make sense? So Rabiot left Juventus in June at the end of his contract, which means that he's been a free agent for like 3 months. So yeah, we can sign them 100%, no problem. Say there was a player with 2 years left on their deal and we wanted to sign them, we wouldn't be able to do that now. They have to be a free agent without a club. So yeah. As Ant says, free agents are exempt from standard transfer window policies. Johnny says, if Bruno gets injured, it will be Zirkzee plus Højlund. Yeah. And you know what? That might work really well, to be fair. I think it's more further back that I'm worried about. What happens if Mainu gets injured? We don't really have anybody else like Kobe Mainu, or we don't at all. So that's more my concern, is like, what happens if Mainu gets injured? And also, how do we manage Kobe Mainu? You don't want Mainu playing every single minute of every single game. He's only 19. Yeah. Wesley says, does that mean we can buy from Brazil because their window is still open? No. No. You can't buy players when the window is closed. You can only get free agents because you're not buying them. They're free. They have no clubs. So yeah, we can't sign anybody who plays for a club. So say we wanted to go and sign, I don't know, Branthwaite. We couldn't do that because the window's closed. You can't buy or sell players when the window is closed. You can only give players contracts who don't currently have a club. That's how it works. Ant says, I still think we need another striker short term. Maybe someone experienced like Ben Yedder. Yeah, I said that all summer that we needed another striker. Yeah, I think so. I really, really think we need another striker. Alex says you'll see Kone. Ineos don't want old guys on big wages. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, I'd love to see this Kone guy get a go, but you are kind of like, you know, resting your season on someone that you've probably never actually seen play football before, you know? That's the bit that, like, concerns me with all of these things. Like, we've put so much pressure on Manuel Ugarte, haven't we? You know, as a fan base, that he's the messiah, he's the missing piece of the puzzle. Once we get Manuel Ugarte, everything will be all right. I just think it's a massive pressure to put on somebody. Hopefully that happens. Hopefully he comes in and he changes everything. But I don't think we're one player away from like going from 8th to 1st, personally. And I don't think that Manuel Ugarte is going to take us from 8th to challenging Man City. I think he's a good player. I think he's the kind of player we need. But I still think there's lots of other gaps. You know, we don't even have a left back at the moment. The wingers are questionable. You know, Rashford plays every game. Is he good enough? Probably not. Like, do you know what I mean? We don't know who our best centre-back partnership is at the moment. Some people say it's Maguire. Some people say it's De Ligt. Some people say it's like, you know what I mean? What do we do with Casemiro? What do we do with Onana? Like, there's still so many question marks, I think. Like, if you look across our whole team, right? Say you look at the team that played against Liverpool and you look from start to finish. This is my opinion. Obviously, you can disagree. I think there's question marks over Onana. We don't have a left back. Dallow's okay at left back. Martinez, I'm happy with. De Ligt, I'm happy with. Mazraoui, I'm happy with. So, in relation to the back five, Onana, massive question mark for me. And obviously, we need a left back because we don't have a left back. You go into the central defensive midfield area. I think Mainu, brilliant, but needs to be able to rotate. And at the moment, we don't have anyone to rotate with him. Casemiro obviously needs to not play, not good enough. Rashford, bench, but doesn't seem to be getting benched. Bruno, fine, good enough. Garnacho, good enough. Zirkzee, I think is good. So we've got 3 or 4 players in that squad still, in the first team, in our best available 11, that I think there's massive question marks over. Casemiro, Onana, Rashford, and I'd say Dalot, but as a left back. I like Dalot as a right back, but I think as a left back, we need Luke Shaw, whoever. So, you know, for people to think that we bring in Manuel Ugarte and we suddenly go from 8th to 1st. Like, Onana's still going to be making mistakes. Rashford's still going to be playing on the left wing. Dallow's still going to be the left back, like, etc., etc., etc. So, yeah, that's kind of my take on it. And I think a lot of people have rested so much pressure on Manuel Ugarte. I think it's a lot. I think it's a lot for the guy. But hopefully he comes and hopefully he proves us all, you know, to be the player we want him to be. Al says, why hasn't Chido Obi Martin signed yet? I think it said it was going to take about 6 weeks. So it should be in the next few weeks, Chido Obi Martin. Max says, I think Rashford would be more impactful coming off the bench. I agree. I think Rashford off the bench when players are tired is absolutely dangerous. I don't think he has a big enough impact in games, Marcus Rashford. Whereas if you bring him on in the 60th, 70th minute as an impact sub, I think he's quality. Somebody saying we should have gone for Diogo Costa. I mean, it's easy to say that now, isn't it? You know, Onana had just come off the back of an amazing Champions League for Inter Milan, and most people were excited about him. So for us to say, oh, we should have got Diogo Costa, I think it's a little bit like, I don't know. But I'm going to wrap the video up here. I'm going to go and have some breakfast. I hope everyone has a lovely day, whatever you're doing. Please make sure to drop a like before you leave. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. This has been Daily Red Devil. Have a lovely day, everyone. I'll speak to you all later. Bye for now.